Hello everyone. In this lesson, let's get acquainted with state management in our web application. Actually, we are already using a state manager, but it's used under the hood of our TRPC and React query. Every time we make some requests to the backend, the returned data is stored in some state and sometimes updated there, and our components update based on them, but we don't need to manage it manually. It is managed under the hood, but there are times when we need to store some application state ourselves. And we do this ourselves too, for example, particularly in Formic. In Formic, values are also state. We have places where we use useState, and in fact, it's also some storage of application state, but it's local, meaning it only exists within the scope of this component. And if we want to use it elsewhere, we have to pass it as props to other components. There is an approach where you can declare state somewhere, change it in one place, access it in another, and still not pass this data through props to each other, but import from some global file. There are popular stories like Redux, MobX, but I think it's all overhead. They are complex, inconvenient, and hard to maintain. In general, I don't like them at all. I really like a library called NanoStores. It's very primitive and meets all our needs. Let's integrate it in the context of the next feature. I want to make it so that when you log into our service, you end up not just on the main page. Like right now, I log in as an admin and land on the main page, and I want to do it like this. For example, such a case. A user comes in. They are not yet authorized, views all ideas, enters the second idea, wants to like it, realizes that they need to register or log in for that. Suppose they log in or register. And here, when they write admin and log in, they don't go to the main page, but to the last visited page before they went to authorize. This kind of thing. What do we need to do for this? We need to constantly, as the user navigates the page, record information about their last visited path, provided that this path is not an authentication path. So it's not logout, sign in, or sign up. And after they authorize, we need to redirect them not to the main page as it is now. Here is our page wrapper, where we redirect to the main page, but redirect to the very last non-authentication route. What needs to be done for this? We need to create a component that will track these routes, place it somewhere in the root of our app structure, so it always works and can monitor where the user goes. And this component will record its last visited routes, and in the page wrapper, we will read this last visited route to maybe redirect there. All right, let's start by installing the NanoStores. We will need the NanoStore itself and its wrapper for React. Okay? Let's start by creating our component that will track user movements. Components. New, folder, non-auth route to tracker. New, file, index.tsx. Okay. All right, let's wait for the NanoStores to install. Okay, our NanoStores are installed. Now we can write the logic of our component. The logic will be like this. Let's analyze it. This is the main line here. We declare a certain store. Here is last visited, not auth-road, and we want to store a string in it. For this, we've indicated the types like this. We import Atom from NanoStores. That is, with Atom, you can define a certain unit. In this case, the default value will be getAllIdsRoad, simply by default, just like how we use useState. Yes, and here we pass a default value. Technically, we could pass any object with any number of keys, right? Well, we just need to set the correct type. Okay, so if we delete this, still a string, right? This type declaration is also optional, just like useState. Okay, All right? You've set this state, but you see it's outside the component, not inside, and you're exporting it. So, this store can be used somewhere else later. Here's the component itself. Let me insert it into the place where it'll be to better understand how it works. We go to apt.sx and add it right inside the browser router because we need information about the routes, so it will be somewhere here. But it doesn't render anything. It's invisible. It just needs its logic to work. Okay, moment. Pre-tertup it. All right, let's import. Import it. Now let's figure out its working logic. We take useLocation from React Router DOM. Here, it stores information about the path the user travels. Then we don't render anything here. At the same time, we have useEffect every time. Here's a function that runs whenever something changes inside this array. Inside this array, there's only path name. So, every time path name changes, and also at the initial run, this function is called. Here, we simply declare a variable to store an array of authentication paths. Sign up, sign in, sign out. To determine if it's an authentication route or not, we just check if path name is in this array. If it's not, then it's not an authentication route. Then we can replace the current value in our store with a new one. For this, we simply take this variable, write.set, and what we want to set there. Everything's set. You can put a console log to see better how it works. Here, when you're debugging, you can do this. It'll be convenient. Path name from auth route. Well, look at your auth routes. Yeah, let's take a look. Open the console. Now we have path name ID 1.2. Is this an authorization route? No. We exit. Here again we have path name, sign in, but this is already an authorization route. We move to sign up, still an authentication. We move to all ideas. It is no longer authentication. Good. So, in principle, everything is set up correctly for us, theoretically. Let's try to apply this in practice. We go to our page wrapper, and here we already need to import useStore from NanoStore with React. Because we declared the store there, and here we will make it so that when this store changes, our components automatically change. That's why we are taking this from our wrapper, and we write the following code right at the beginning of page wrapper. We can request last visited, not out road. That is, the store itself is not a value. After all, a store is a store. So, the value still needs to be retrieved from it, and we get them through useStore. So, we import this store simply from our component, and now we have this route. Basically, we just need to redirect to it. The point is that it also needs to be added to useEffect dependencies. So if it changes, everything changes too. Okay, and let's check if it works. So, we've removed the console logs. In principle, you can compare this here like this. I'll put a console log here now. All right, now we're on the main page, going to see the last uninitiated like this. Go to sign in, and it still remains like that. This is convenient for us because we want to be redirected here. Enter admin. 1, 2, 3, 4. Sign in. And we go back to the page where we just were. And if we were, for example, in the first one, here is logout. Sign in. Again, admin. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you see, it still brought us back to the first. So it's become more convenient. And the feature itself is good. And the logic that it's easy and convenient to use NanoStores is also shown. Actually, in your application, you will have very few such stores. But when you need them, just use NanoStores. NanoStores even have the capability to store, for example, this store in local storage, and make sure that when you reload the browser or visit later, your data is still saved. This is a perfect tool for our purposes. It's better suited than any other state managers. That's all. Thank you, everyone. Let's move on.